They tell history as though only men built empires, as though only men wrote laws, crowned kings, or started wars. But if you look closely, in every empire, behind every throne, you find the same shadow. Women. Not the loud ones, not the obvious ones, but the hidden ones. Organized, connected, deliberate. Secret societies of women who shaped power without appearing to touch it. This is not about gossip. It is not about shallow seduction. This is about invisible networks of women who controlled the men who controlled the world. Whispered strategies passed from queen to mistress, from courtesan to empress, from widow to wife. They understood that power is not seized in public. It is traded in silence, in intimacy, in ritual. And for those who mastered the code, men bent the world to please them. If you think this is exaggeration, look at history. Catherine de Medici, a foreign bride in France, dismissed at first, but she gathered widows, courtiers, and ladies-in-waiting into a circle that lasted decades. Together they controlled marriages, alliances, and dynasties. In Venice, the courtesans formed what was effectively a guild, sharing secrets, methods, and clients. In England, Elizabeth I's ladies-in-waiting became her secret intelligence network, reporting every whisper, every plan, every foreign ambassador's words. These were not accidents. These were societies. Women who understood survival required strategy, and strategy required unity. Here is the paradox. The world underestimates women, but women who are underestimated and who organize quietly become unstoppable. That is why every generation produces them. They are not written about loudly, because men wrote the histories, but they existed. And the patterns repeat in every era. Once you see them, you cannot unsee them. Chapter 1. The Silent Sisterhood. The first rule of these women was discretion. They spoke little in public. They revealed little. They allowed men to underestimate them, because silence is protection. A woman who tells everything invites attack. A woman who withholds becomes a fortress. Within these sisterhoods, silence was not passive. It was active. It built mystery. It allowed them to move undetected. Elizabeth I used silence as a weapon. Her council argued for hours, voices raised, each man desperate to prove himself. She sat quiet, letting them exhaust themselves, revealing nothing. When she finally spoke, it was decisive. Silence magnified her words. Her ladies learned the same art. They were trained to listen, not chatter, to withhold, not overshare. Their silence became intelligence gathering. Their restraint became power. Catherine de Medici used silence too. She was known for long pauses in conversation, for answering only after others grew nervous. This unsettled her rivals more than shouting ever could. While men underestimated her quietness, she was already planning her next move. Compare this to modern women. Ordinary women overshare online. They spill feelings to strangers, post their entire lives for free. They confuse attention with respect, but dangerous women hold back. They give fragments, never the whole. They cultivate a trusted circle, but to outsiders they are unreadable. Silence is not emptiness. It is tension. It forces men to wonder, what does she know? What is she hiding? And that wonder creates power. Practical tactics for the modern woman. Train yourself to pause before answering questions. Never reveal your full plans until they are complete. Resist the urge to explain. Let others fill the silence. Build an inner circle of confidants, but keep outsiders guessing. This is how the silent sisterhood lives on today. Chapter 2. Gatekeeping access. Men of power are always surrounded by noise. Everyone wants something from them. The women who controlled them mastered the law of access. They became gatekeepers. They filtered who reached the man, what words reached his ears, what problems he noticed, what pleasures he indulged. To control a man's access is to control his perception, and perception is reality. Madame de Pompadour, the mistress of Louis XV, was a master of this law. She did not just entertain the king, she curated who entered his chambers, which advisors were heard, which artists performed. Ministers knew that to reach the king, they had to go through her. She became the filter, and by controlling access, she controlled France itself. Even queens practiced this. In Russia, Catherine the Great famously surrounded herself with hand-picked advisors and lovers. She decided who could speak to her, who could not, who was promoted, who was exiled. The throne was hers, but access was the real weapon. To gain access meant survival. To lose it meant irrelevance. Today, this law is everywhere. A woman who is always available trains others to see her as cheap. A woman who gates her time, her energy, her attention, trains others to see her as priceless. Ordinary women let anyone enter their world. Dangerous women filter. They make men earn their access. They never allow themselves to be bypassed. Practical tactics for gatekeeping. Do not answer messages instantly. Delay is power. Control your environment. Decide where and when people meet you. Be willing to withdraw access without warning when disrespected. Never explain why someone has lost access. Silence speaks louder than reasons. To gatekeep is to filter reality itself. Chapter 3. Secrets as currency. Powerful men confess in intimacy what they never reveal in council. The women who controlled them understood that secrets are currency. They listened carefully. They remembered everything, and they shared strategically. A single secret could elevate a friend or destroy a rival. Within their societies, secrets were guarded, traded, and weaponized. That is why kings feared their mistresses as much as they loved them. They knew one whisper could end them. In Venice, courtesans were confidants to merchants, diplomats, even spies. They passed secrets within their circle, deciding which whispers could be sold and which should be buried. They created a shadow economy of information. Men thought they were buying pleasure. In truth, they were paying to be studied. In France, Catherine de Medici used her ladies to gather secrets from ambassadors. The women engaged them in casual conversation, appearing harmless while extracting details of military plans and alliances. Those whispers went back to Catherine, who then steered policy from the shadows. Her enemies thought her quiet. In reality, she had more intelligence than they did. Even today, this law holds. A woman who rushes to reveal everything is predictable. A woman who listens, who remembers, who shares selectively, is dangerous. She becomes the vault. Men relax, reveal, confess. And she, without saying a word, becomes the one who holds the crown jewels of information. Secrets are not gossip. They are weapons, and in the right hands, they change everything. Practical tactics for secrets. Speak less than you listen. Let others fill silence with revelations. Keep mental notes of what people say, even in passing. Never reveal information until it serves your purpose. If challenged, use vagueness instead of confession. Remember, Secrets are not for entertainment, they are for leverage. Guard them the way queens guarded crowns. Chapter 4. The Illusion of Loyalty. These women understood one of the most unsettling truths of power. Loyalty is rarely pure. Men expect loyalty to be either complete or absent. They imagine that devotion means obedience and betrayal means open rebellion. But the women who mastered power knew that loyalty is a performance. They gave the illusion of endless devotion, while their true allegiance remained with themselves and their circle. Think of Cleopatra. To Caesar she performed loyalty. To Antony she performed loyalty again. But her real loyalty was to Egypt, to her throne, to survival itself. Both men believed they were the center of her devotion. Both were mistaken. She bent her performance to whatever protected her sovereignty. That is the essence of the illusion. Men saw loyalty, but what they were really seeing was strategy. This pattern repeats through history. Mistresses to kings soothed egos, smiled sweetly, and promised eternal devotion. Yet when power shifted, they aligned with the victor almost instantly. Their secret societies taught them never to attach to a man's survival, only to their own. That is why they endured even as men fell. Today, the ordinary woman gives loyalty blindly. She attaches her identity to a man, a company, a friend group, and when they betray her, she collapses. The dangerous woman never collapses because her loyalty is flexible. She gives the illusion of loyalty, but at her core, she is loyal only to herself and her chosen circle. That flexibility makes her untouchable. Practical tactics give the appearance of loyalty in public, but never tie your survival to one person. Praise a man's ego when it serves you, but never confuse performance with devotion. Always have an exit strategy. Understand that loyalty is a costume. You wear it, but it never wears you. Chapter 5. Scarcity as Ritual. In every one of these societies, scarcity was not an accident. It was a ritual. Nothing was given freely. Attention was rationed. Affection was rationed. Even presence was rationed. Scarcity was not cruelty. It was value creation. Because what is always available is taken for granted. But what is scarce is worshipped. Venetian courtesans perfected this law. They would disappear for weeks, refusing invitations, rejecting gifts, allowing men to suffer in absence. Then, when they returned, it was as if sunlight had entered the room. Their scarcity drove obsession. Men competed ferociously because nothing was guaranteed. To appear often is to appear ordinary. To appear rarely, on your own terms, is to appear priceless. Even queens and empresses use scarcity. Elizabeth I never married. She withheld herself entirely from her court, dangling the possibility of marriage to secure decades of political leverage. Every king in Europe dreamed of wedding her, but she gave none of them the prize. By rationing her very body, she held entire nations hostage to hope. Scarcity was her most effective weapon. In the modern world, scarcity is still misunderstood. Ordinary women believe that constant availability proves love. They answer texts instantly, rearrange their schedules, sacrifice sleep and dignity to remain accessible. And yet, this very availability makes them invisible. The dangerous woman knows the opposite is true. To ration access is to increase value. To appear sparingly is to multiply demand. Practical tactics: do not appear everywhere. Be deliberate about your presence. Delay your responses. Anticipation is power. Say no to invitations. so that your yes becomes sacred. When you leave, leave completely. Absence sharpens desire. Scarcity is not about cruelty. It is about training others to understand that you are a rare commodity, and rare things are always revered. Chapter 6. Ritual as Branding. Every secret society of women had rituals. They understood that power is never only about action, it is about perception, and perception is shaped by ritual. Rituals turn an ordinary woman into a myth. They create an aura. They train people to expect reverence in your presence. Cleopatra understood this better than almost anyone in history. When she sailed into Rome, she did not arrive like a politician. She arrived on a golden barge, perfumed sails, musicians playing, herself reclining as though she were already divine. It was theatre, a ritual of power, and it branded her in the minds of Romans as something other than human. She was myth, not woman. Elizabeth I used ritual too. She cultivated the Virgin Queen image deliberately. Her gowns, her colours, her jewels all repeated the same message. She was untouchable, married only to England. Every appearance was staged, every detail deliberate. It was ritual as propaganda, and it made her aura indestructible. Even in more intimate circles, rituals mattered. Venetian courtesans used perfumes, signature gestures, carefully chosen clothing to brand themselves as unique. Men remembered them not only for conversation or beauty, but for the aura they carried. That aura multiplied their influence. In modern life, ritual is still underestimated. Ordinary women move casually, enter rooms distracted, apologize for existing. Dangerous women move with ritual. Their entrances are deliberate, their style consistent, their gestures calculated. Ritual tells the world, I am not ordinary. Ritual trains others to treat you as untouchable. Practical tactics. Choose a signature scent and make it rare. Enter slowly into every space, never rushed. Repeat certain gestures deliberately until they become iconic. Create mystery through consistent style, clothing that signals, without words, that you are in control. Ritual is branding, and branding is power. Those who ignore this law are forgotten. Those who master it become unforgettable. Chapter 7. The Strategic Smile. Warmth is one of the most dangerous weapons women possess, but only when it is rationed. Ordinary women smile constantly, laugh too freely, offer warmth without cost. It is wasted. But these societies of women understood the strategic smile. A smile withheld until the right moment could destroy defenses more effectively than hours of seduction. A sudden softness after weeks of coldness could hook a man for life. Contrast is what gives charm its edge. Consider Josephine, Napoleon's great love. She was not the most beautiful woman in France, but she mastered warmth as performance. Napoleon, a man of steel and ambition, would melt at her selective softness. She rationed it carefully, never flooding him with affection, always keeping him slightly hungry. Her restraint drove him to obsession. Even courtesans of Venice used this law. They would remain cold, distant, and then in one moment drop a laugh, a touch, a glance that felt like sunshine. That moment became addictive, because it was rare. Men would spend fortunes chasing it again. The strategic smile is never constant. It is always controlled. Modern parallels are easy to see. A woman who laughs at everything quickly becomes invisible. A woman who laughs rarely, who smiles only at chosen moments, becomes magnetic. Her approval feels like gold. Men will fight endlessly for one more fragment of it. Practical tactics. Withhold warmth until the moment it will land hardest. Smile slowly, never instantly. Let anticipation build. Alternate between detachment and sudden softness. Contrast is addictive. Give warmth as a reward, not a default. The strategic smile works because it is rationed, and what is rationed is always revered. Chapter 8. The Black Widow Principle. The secret societies of powerful women understood something men rarely do. Victory often belongs not to the strongest, but to the one who endures longest. They mastered patience. They mastered silence. They mastered the art of waiting while others destroyed themselves. This is what I call the Black Widow Principle. Survive, remain calm, and eventually everything comes to you. History is filled with examples. Wu Zetian, the only female emperor of China, began her rise as a concubine, overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. But she waited. She outlasted rivals, endured betrayals, and slowly positioned herself as indispensable. By the time her enemies realized her ambition, it was too late. She had already spun her web, and they were caught in it. Wu Zetian did not seize power in one violent blow. She inherited it by surviving longer than anyone else. In Europe, countless queens and noblewomen discovered the same truth. Widows often rose higher than wives. Once the husband was gone, the widow inherited estates, wealth, alliances, and the loyalty of entire households. Men fought battles, women inherited thrones. This was not luck, it was strategy. Endurance itself was the weapon. Even in modern life, this principle holds. Ordinary women demand instant gratification. They fight to be heard immediately. They burn themselves out chasing results. Dangerous women are patient. They can wait in silence, knowing that rivals will reveal themselves, that enemies will make mistakes, that men will eventually return. Patience frightens people because it cannot be provoked. A woman who cannot be rushed is a woman who cannot be controlled. Practical tactics. Do not demand immediate outcomes. Allow time to work in your favor. Resist emotional reactions. Endurance unsettles more than anger. Let rivals overextend, then step in calmly when they collapse. When betrayed, withdraw instead of fighting. Time punishes more than fury. Patience is not weakness. It is the slow poison that wins wars without lifting a sword. Chapter 9. The Performance of Innocence. One of the deadliest strategies in the feminine playbook is the performance of innocence. These women knew that men expect threat to look obvious. They prepare themselves against rivals, against warriors, against other men. But they do not prepare themselves against softness, sweetness, or naivety. The mask of innocence is the perfect disguise for ambition. Cleopatra was infamous for this. Roman historians who despised her described her as frivolous, manipulative, unserious. They thought they were insulting her. In reality, they were confessing their own blindness. Cleopatra deliberately performed innocence when it suited her. She used charm, humor, and playful sweetness to disguise strategy. By the time men realized her sharpness, they were already trapped. Catherine de Medici used the same mask. Surrounded by ambitious nobles and generals, she appeared harmless, the quiet widow, the patient mother. Yet behind that facade, She orchestrated political marriages, manipulated alliances, and secured her dynasty. Men underestimated her precisely because she invited them to. Innocence is camouflage. And in war, camouflage wins battles before they even begin. In the modern world, this mask still works. Ordinary women overshare their ambition, announcing every desire, every plan, every goal. They alert rivals before the game has even begun. Dangerous women do the opposite. They appear gentle, harmless, even naive. They allow others to relax, to underestimate them, and then, at the decisive moment, they reveal their steel. The shock doubles their impact. Practical tactics. When underestimated, do not resist. Let it be your camouflage. Speak softly while planning ruthlessly. Smile and withhold your true intent until the right moment. Use innocence as a veil, but never confuse the veil for your identity. The performance of innocence works because men never suspect that danger hides behind a smile. By the time they see it, you have already won. Chapter 10. The Final Law. The Circle Protects. Perhaps the most powerful truth of these secret societies is this: no woman rises alone. Behind every queen, every courtesan, every empress, there was a circle, a network, a sisterhood that protected one another, that shared secrets, that multiplied influence. This was their hidden weapon. While men competed loudly, they collaborated quietly, and together they controlled dynasties. Elizabeth I's ladies-in-waiting were not mere servants. They were her spies, her confidants, her shield. They carried her letters, reported whispers from foreign ambassadors, and protected her reputation at court. They were a circle of loyalty, bound not just by duty, but by shared survival. In Venice, courtesans formed guild-like societies. They shared techniques, protected one another from abuse, and collectively raised their status above ordinary women. Alone, they would have been disposable. Together, they were untouchable. Even kings tread carefully when facing a united sisterhood. This is the law most modern women ignore. Too often, women are trained to compete with one another, to tear each other down for scraps of attention. That isolation is weakness. The dangerous woman builds alliances. She chooses her circle carefully, protects it fiercely, and multiplies her power through it. Alone, she can be dismissed. Together, she cannot be touched. Practical tactics. Stop competing with every woman around you. Choose allies instead. Share strategy only with your inner circle, never with outsiders. Protect your circle fiercely. Loyalty within it multiplies your strength. Understand that collaboration, not isolation, is the foundation of power. The ordinary woman isolates herself, fights alone, and loses quietly. The dangerous woman surrounds herself with a secret society and bends the world as a collective force. Conclusion. The Shadow Rule. So here is the final revelation. The secret societies of women who controlled men of power were not accidents. They were not rare miracles. They were deliberate, strategic, patient, and united. They spoke little, revealed less, rationed everything, and moved in silence. Men thought they were conquering the world. In reality, the women beside them, behind them, and surrounding them were shaping it. The ordinary woman lives loudly, overshares, demands, and is forgotten. The beautiful woman is admired briefly, then replaced. But the dangerous woman, the one who joins the silent sisterhood, who withholds, who gates access, who gathers secrets, who performs innocence, who builds circles. She bends kingdoms without appearing to touch them. Because power is never seized in noise, it is whispered in shadows, and the women who mastered that whisper have always ruled the world, even if history pretends otherwise.